Police car light urgent soulmate update. They secretly asked someone about you. What they heard changed their entire plan. My beloved child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because this message is about a hidden conversation, an unexpected realization, and a change of direction that may completely alter the way someone has been thinking about you. You may have felt that your soulmate became distant. You may have wondered whether they still care, whether they remember you, or whether they have quietly moved on. You may have spent nights asking yourself why someone who once seemed so emotionally connected could suddenly become silent. But my beloved child, sometimes people do not reveal everything they are thinking. Sometimes they ask questions privately because they are afraid of the answers. Sometimes they seek another person's opinion because they do not know how to approach the person who is actually on their heart. And today, the message is not asking you to assume that every hidden conversation is proof of destiny. Instead, it is inviting you to stay calm, stay grounded, and recognize that people can be processing feelings privately before making decisions publicly. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate recently asked someone about you. Maybe it was a friend, a family member, a mutual connection, or someone who knows both of you. Perhaps they simply wanted to know how you are doing. Perhaps they wanted to know whether you are still single. Perhaps they wanted to know whether you have moved on. Perhaps they wanted to know whether you are angry. Perhaps they wanted to know whether you would even speak to them again. And maybe what they heard caused them to rethink everything. But remember, my beloved child, you do not know the private details unless they are communicated directly. Do not allow imagination to become a substitute for truth. What you can do is prepare yourself emotionally for the possibility of a conversation while continuing to live your life. My beloved child, there is a reason this situation may feel so intense. You may have been waiting for clarity for a long time. You may have wondered whether their silence meant indifference. You may have assumed that if they cared, they would simply come forward. Sometimes people do care and still remain silent because they are confused, afraid, proud, or uncertain. But caring alone is not enough. Healthy relationships require communication and action. If someone wants a place in your future, eventually they must communicate their intentions directly. My beloved child, perhaps the person they asked gave them an answer they did not expect. Maybe they heard that you have changed. Maybe they heard that you are no longer waiting. Maybe they heard that you are focusing on your own life. Maybe they heard that you have become stronger and more independent. Maybe they heard that you still care but will not chase anyone. Whatever they heard, perhaps it forced them to confront a reality they had been avoiding. They may have realized that the version of you they once knew is not standing still. You have been growing. You have been healing. You have been learning. You have been changing. And that can change the entire dynamic of a connection. My beloved child, perhaps they believed you would always be available. Maybe they assumed you would eventually reach out. Maybe they thought enough time would pass and you would return to the same emotional place. But time changes people. Distance changes perspective. Silence can reveal priorities. And your growth may have become impossible for them to ignore. My beloved child, this is why you should never underestimate the power of focusing on yourself. When you stop chasing someone, you are not necessarily making them miss you. You are simply removing yourself from a cycle of anxiety and uncertainty. You are reclaiming your time. You are reclaiming your attention. You are reclaiming your emotional energy. And sometimes, when you do that, the other person notices the difference. But do not make your healing a strategy for getting someone back. Heal because you deserve to heal. Grow because you deserve to grow. Live because your life deserves to be lived. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate asked someone, "How is she doing?" or "How is he doing?" Maybe they asked casually, pretending that the question meant nothing. But the person they asked may have noticed something in their voice. They may have realized that the question came from genuine curiosity. Maybe your soulmate tried to act indifferent, but the question itself revealed that they still wondered about you. Yet even if that happened, remember that curiosity is not commitment. Missing someone is not the same as being ready for a healthy relationship. So stay wise. My beloved child, perhaps they asked whether you still talk about them. Maybe they wanted to know whether you still have feelings. Maybe they were afraid that you had completely moved on. Maybe they wanted reassurance before taking a risk. But if they are truly serious, eventually they will need to stop asking other people and start talking to you. That is the difference between curiosity and courage. My beloved child, do not spend your days trying to discover who they may have asked. Do not investigate every mutual connection. Do not question friends. Do not monitor social media. Do not create stories in your mind. Protect your peace. If the information matters, it will eventually reach you through direct communication. And when that happens, you can decide what to do with it. My beloved child, perhaps the person they asked told them something they had not expected. Maybe they said that you have become more confident. Maybe they said that you are working on your goals. Maybe they said that you are not interested in drama anymore. Maybe they said that you seem peaceful. Maybe they said that you have changed the way you approach relationships. Hearing this could have made your soulmate realize that if they want to approach you, they cannot approach you the same way as before. They may understand that old patterns will not work anymore. And that can be a powerful realization. My beloved child, perhaps they have finally understood that your silence was not a game. It was exhaustion. You may have stopped reaching out because you were tired of carrying the emotional weight. You may have stopped explaining because you realized that explanations were not changing behavior. You may have stopped asking questions because the answers were never clear. And perhaps now they are beginning to understand what your absence actually means. My beloved child, if someone realizes your value only after losing access to you, do not punish them for that realization, but do not reward them with immediate access either. Let them demonstrate growth. A realization is a beginning, not a finished transformation. If they say they understand, ask yourself whether their actions show that understanding. If they apologize, observe whether they change. If they return, observe whether they stay. Consistency is where intention becomes real. My beloved child, perhaps what they heard was that you are no longer willing to accept the same behavior. Maybe someone told them that you have become more protective of your heart. Maybe they heard that you are not interested in half-hearted connections. Maybe they realized that if they come back, they will need to be honest. This could be why their entire plan changed. Perhaps they had been planning to approach casually, expecting everything to feel familiar. Now they may realize that they need to approach with greater sincerity. But again, let them show it. My beloved child, do not prepare a speech for a conversation that has not happened. Do not imagine every word they might say. Do not decide in advance how you will react. Instead, know your values. Know your boundaries. Know what you need. Then, if a conversation happens, you can respond naturally. My beloved child, perhaps they have been thinking about reaching out for weeks. They may have typed messages and deleted them. They may have opened your profile and closed it. They may have wondered whether you would respond. They may have feared rejection. But you do not need to know every detail. If they want to speak, they can speak. You do not have to carry their fear for them. Courage belongs to the person who needs to make the move. My beloved child, perhaps they asked someone because they were looking for a sign that it was safe to approach you. Maybe they heard that you are not angry. Maybe they heard that you still care. Maybe they heard that you are doing well. And that information could have changed their confidence. But remember, your emotional state is not an invitation they are entitled to. Even if you still care, you have the right to decide whether reconnecting is healthy. My beloved child, you can love someone and still decide that the relationship is not right for you. That is one of the hardest lessons in love. Feelings do not automatically create compatibility. You can miss someone and still need distance. You can forgive someone and still choose not to return. You can care about someone and still protect your peace. These choices are not contradictions. They are signs of maturity. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate is beginning to understand that. Maybe they have finally recognized that they cannot simply return whenever they feel lonely. Maybe they realize that trust must be rebuilt. Maybe they realize that your heart is not a revolving door. Maybe they realize that you need consistency. This realization may be uncomfortable for them, but it is necessary if they genuinely want a future with you. My beloved child, perhaps they asked someone about you because they were trying to understand whether you have moved on. If they heard that you are doing well, they may have felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief because they want you to be okay. Fear because they may realize that you can be okay without them. That is an important lesson for both of you. Your happiness cannot depend on whether someone stays. Their happiness cannot depend on whether you stay. A healthy relationship is two people choosing each other freely, not two people clinging to each other out of fear. My beloved child, if they truly want you, they must be willing to choose you while respecting your freedom. And you must be willing to choose them only if their presence adds something healthy to your life. This is how mature love works. My beloved child, perhaps the person they asked gave them a simple answer: they have changed. That sentence can mean many things. Maybe you have become stronger. Maybe you are quieter. Maybe you have stopped explaining yourself. Maybe you have started pursuing goals. Maybe you have become more confident. Maybe you have learned to say no. Maybe you no longer tolerate uncertainty. Whatever the change, it is yours. Do not change yourself to trigger a reaction from someone else. Your growth belongs to you. My beloved child, if someone returns because they notice your growth, that can be meaningful, but make sure they appreciate the person you have become rather than trying to pull you back into the person you used to be. A healthy partner supports growth. They do not demand that you return to an old version of yourself for their comfort. My beloved child, perhaps they have realized that the connection cannot remain undefined. Maybe they are tired of wondering too. Maybe they want to know where they stand with you. If they reach out, you can have an honest conversation. You do not need games. You do not need tests. You do not need jealousy. You do not need to pretend. Say what is true. Ask what is true. Then make your decision based on the answers. My beloved child, sometimes the most powerful romantic moment is not a dramatic confession. It is two people finally telling the truth. Maybe they say, "I still care." Maybe you say, "I cared too, but I was hurt." Maybe they say, "I want to make things right." Maybe you say, "Then show me through your actions." That is where a new chapter can begin. Not through fantasy, but through honesty. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate has been carrying regret. Maybe they know they mishandled the connection. Maybe they wish they had communicated differently. Maybe they realize that pride cost them something valuable. Regret can motivate a person, but it can also become another form of emotional avoidance. A mature person does not only regret. They take responsibility. They learn. They change. They communicate. If your soulmate is ready to do that, let them show you. My beloved child, perhaps they asked someone whether you would forgive them. If that question was asked, remember that forgiveness is not something another person can demand. Forgiveness is your choice. You can forgive at your own pace. You can forgive without reconciling. You can forgive without forgetting the lesson. And you can decide that certain behavior will not be repeated in your life. My beloved child, perhaps they asked whether you are seeing someone else. If they did, that may reveal that they are curious about your current life, but it does not automatically mean they are ready for commitment. Do not let jealousy become confused with love. Someone can fear losing access to you without being prepared to build a relationship. Watch what they do after they receive the information. Do they communicate honestly? Do they make a clear effort? Do they respect your choices? Those are stronger indicators. My beloved child, maybe they heard that you have been focusing on yourself and that changed their plan. Perhaps they had been thinking about waiting longer, but now they realize that waiting may mean losing the opportunity entirely. That realization could motivate them to act. But again, you do not need to chase the action. Let them make their own move. My beloved child, there is dignity in allowing someone to choose. If they choose you, let them choose you freely. If they do not, let them go freely. Your heart will hurt sometimes, but freedom is better than emotional captivity. You cannot build healthy love by forcing a person to remain. My beloved child, perhaps you have been afraid that if you stop chasing, the relationship will disappear. But if the relationship depends entirely on your pursuit, then you were already carrying something that should have been shared. Let the other person participate. Let them show initiative. Let them communicate. Let them invest. This is how you discover whether the connection has mutual strength. My beloved child, perhaps your soulmate has finally understood this too. Maybe they realized that you were doing most of the emotional work. Maybe they realized that you were always the one starting conversations, repairing conflicts, or trying to keep the connection alive. If they have become aware of that imbalance, perhaps they are preparing to correct it. If they do, let their effort speak. You do not need to praise them for doing the minimum. You can appreciate genuine change while still expecting consistency. My beloved child, sometimes people make a dramatic return because they fear permanent loss. They may become emotional, passionate, or intense. But intensity can fade. Consistency remains. So if someone suddenly returns, do not immediately assume the entire future has changed. Give it time. Let ordinary days reveal what dramatic moments hide. My beloved child, perhaps they are about to ask for another chance. If they do, ask yourself whether you want the same person you lost or the person they are becoming. If nothing has changed, another chance may simply recreate the same pain. If genuine growth has occurred, perhaps there is something worth exploring. But growth cannot be assumed. It must be demonstrated. My beloved child, perhaps the person they asked gave them a warning. Maybe they said, if you go back, do it seriously. Maybe they reminded them that you were hurt. Maybe they told them that you deserve clarity. Hearing that could have changed their plan because they realized they could no longer approach casually. This could be positive. A serious relationship requires serious intention. My beloved child, if they approach seriously, you will notice. Their communication will become clearer. Their plans will become more concrete. Their behavior will become more consistent. Their interest will not disappear whenever things become inconvenient. They will make room for your needs. They will ask about your life. They will want to understand your perspective. They will take responsibility. These are the signs of maturity. My beloved child, perhaps they are also realizing that you have boundaries now. Maybe they know they cannot simply say, "I miss you," and expect everything to return to normal. Maybe they understand that you need more than words. That is good. Let the relationship be rebuilt on stronger foundations if it is rebuilt at all. My beloved child, you may be tempted to ask mutual friends what they said. Resist that temptation if it creates anxiety. You do not need every detail. Sometimes knowing too much about private conversations creates more confusion rather than less. Let direct communication be the bridge. If something important needs to be known, ask the person involved. My beloved child, you deserve direct answers. You deserve to hear someone's feelings from their own mouth rather than through rumors. You deserve relationships where people speak to you rather than about you. This is another reason to stay grounded. Do not let third-party information control your emotions. My beloved child, perhaps the unexpected change is that your soulmate realizes they have been listening to too many outside voices. Friends may have opinions. Family may have opinions. Social media may have opinions. But ultimately, relationships belong to the people in them. If your soulmate wants a future with you, they must have the courage to make their own decisions. You should not have to compete with everyone around them. My beloved child, and you also should not allow outside opinions to control your choices. Listen to wise people you trust, but make your final decisions based on your own experience. You are the one who lives the relationship. You are the one who knows how it feels. My beloved child, perhaps someone told your soulmate that you are doing better without them. If that information reached them, it might have caused a strong emotional reaction. But remember, your goal should never be to make someone regret losing you. Your goal should be to become well for your own sake. If they regret it, that is their emotion. Your healing belongs to you. My beloved child, maybe they heard that you have become happier. Let that happiness remain yours. Do not give it away simply because someone returns. If they want to join your life, they should contribute to your peace, not replace it. This is the standard. My beloved child, perhaps the person they asked said that you still have feelings. If so, your soulmate may feel encouraged. But your feelings do not obligate you to accept them. You can still care and require accountability. You can still love and require consistency. You can still hope and move slowly. My beloved child, if they reach out after hearing that you care, let them speak for themselves. Do not fill in the blanks. Ask what they want. Ask why now. Ask what has changed. Ask what they are prepared to do differently. Then listen not only to their answers but to the way they respond to your questions. Emotional maturity is visible in how people handle difficult conversations. My beloved child, perhaps they become defensive. Perhaps they say you should simply forget the past. If so, be careful. A person who wants a second chance should be willing to acknowledge why the first chance failed. They do not nay.